Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need an experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes, offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success, because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. That's AmericanEagle.com, AmericanEagle.com. All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks to everybody who sent me nice messages about the recent 250th episode of the Richard Roeper podcast. We appreciate that. All new stuff to talk about today. Everybody's been talking about, I mean, when I say everybody, I mean, some people. Everybody's been talking about, Variety has come out with a list of the best 100 comedies of all time. Anytime you get these lists, the great thing is people are like, oh, they're wrong. They missed the boat. And there's no right or wrong, really. Of course, these things are subjective. I think they got, they had a bunch of their top writers, some of the best critics around, including Owen Gleiberman and Angelique Jackson, Rebecca Rubin, Pat Saperstein, Brett Lang, and Peter DeBruge. So I don't know how if they all voted on it, what their process was, but they came up with a list of the 100 best comedies of all time, which is, obviously, everybody's list is going to be different. All lists are going to have certain picks. I'm going to scroll through these because I on purpose, deliberately, did not read a lot of the articles about this. I knew about it, and I saw people commenting saying, I can't believe they forgot this or forgot that. But I kind of wanted to just experience it in real time with you guys. We're going to go through all one. No, we're not going to go through all 100. Are you insane? I'm not going to do that to you. But I'm just going to scroll through those. I noticed, so at number 100, counting it down, I'm Casey Kasem. Goddamn dead dog. Some of you will get that old reference. Bridget Jones's Diary is at number 100. They've got Wayne's World at 99. My immediate thought is I think it probably might be higher, should be higher. Pretty Woman. And as soon as we get into movies like, and then Born Yesterday, I mean, they do have a lot of classics as well. But as soon as we get into something like Pretty Woman, and I notice now I'm going through this, Clerks, Kevin Smith's groundbreaking and career-making independent film, you immediately realize, of course, that there are so many different types of comedies within the genre, where something like Pretty Woman, yes, it's a comedy. It's a rom-com, but it's got its dark edge. Julia Roberts playing the Vivian, who has turned to a life on the streets. She's just beginning, but she's a sex worker. And Richard Gere obviously has a lot of issues because he hires somebody to be his companion. And the Jason Alexander character, who's the lawyer, is one of the monsters of the movie, and he attacks her. There's it's even though it's romanticized and some people have a problem with it, it's a fable. I think it's more its time, and I think it's a great film. And talk about a star-making vehicle, but it's grounded mostly in sort of a real-world situation, right? As opposed to something like Wayne's World, which I love, but the strange thing about Wayne's World for me is, as a sketch, it kind of worked because these two guys, doing this cable access show in their basement, but I was never quite sure, are they supposed to be 35 or 18? Because they're acting like they're 18, so do they have problems? They're more surreal, and you get the big broad comedies. They mentioned Bob and Carol and Ted Nallis. That's a film from 1969 with Robert Culp, Elliot Gould, Natalie Wood, and Diane Cannon, and it's about these couples, and are they going to do a little swapping? And it was Bob and Carol and Ted Nallis was a great title because it was like, oh my God, they're going to have a foursome, they're going to swing, and they're going to swap. And it's very much of the time, and yet it seems edgy, but it's actually it's got an air of melancholy and sadness to it. Anchorman. See, then you go to something like Anchorman, which is a complete farce, and which is fantastic, but they're so different. And sometimes I look at this list and I'm like, I didn't even know that was a comedy so much. You think of some of these. Continuing to scroll down, The Awful Truth. I love seeing that there. The Devil Wears Prada is at 81. We're moving quickly through these, but and it's fun. It's fun to get through the list of I can't believe you didn't mention this. Like Blazing Saddles at 77. I think a lot of people would have Blazing Saddles in their top 10. I think I would definitely have it in my top 25. These critics for Variety did a great job of mixing modern comedies, beloved classics, the more kind of dramedies, if you will, which is kind of an awkward term, but that are comedies as well as dramas on the list. They got Ace Ventura, Pet Detective at number 69. I'm not the hugest fan of those movies, quite frankly. I mean, I get talented Jim Carrey, but... And then they also mixed in, like, okay, you got Eddie Murphy, Raw, at number 66. But now we're talking about a concert film, a comedy concert film. So that to me is a very different thing than a scripted. I would have that as a separate category. I just think it's kind of hard to compare that type of thing. What do we got? We've got Airplane at number 62. I think has to be higher. Don't you guys agree? Of course you do. It's a parody of a 0 Hour disaster movie, but actually a parody of all those big disaster movies. But it really kind of influenced so many other films of that ilk, if you will. My Best Friend's Wedding at number 57. Yeah, I wouldn't have it that high. That's a film. I've talked about this, I think, with you guys in the podcast before. So Julia Roberts playing, she decides that she's in love with her best friend. She tries to sabotage the wedding of her best friend, and she's not a likable person and doesn't really have what I think is a particularly satisfying ending. And just isn't that funny. It's a well-made film. Not something I'd want to go back. Elf, I just rewatched Elf the other night, and Elf is magical. It really is. There's a reason why it's become... listen, it's 22 years ago. So for a certain generation, it's like an oldie. It's like, oh, my parents loved that movie, or I watched it as a kid. But it was one of the best marriages of Will Ferrell's ability to play these overgrown man-children, in this case, an elf who thinks he's a human, but he thinks he's an elf. And in the wrong hands, that would have been a creepy role. It could have been. It is very sweet and likable. See, but then they got Broadcast News right next. And Broadcast News, yeah. It's a comedy. It's about the world of TV news. And boy, from 1987, a lot of that still rings true. Very knowing James L. Brooks, who had done Terms of Endearment. And he's got a new movie coming out next week, I think. And Albert Brooks and Holly Hunter and William Hurt. This amazing cast. Jack Nicholson has one of his great cameos. But, there's some pretty, I don't know. There's at least as much drama as comedy in Broadcast News. Coming to America at 46, I got to have that higher. Coming to America, I'd have in my top 25. The Eddie Murphy, the string of hits there. I mean, we already mentioned the stand-up special, but Coming to America, Trading Places, man, so good. And Nutty Professor, I would have all probably top 30s. It's hard though, because I'm saying all these and like, wait a minute, you're going to have to, they got Zoolander at number 40, and I am not a huge Zoolander fan. I get it. Kind of funny. I know a lot of people love it. I remember in the 2000s, a lot of people, college students and folks and their kids in their 20s, if you will, were dressing up in the Zoolander costumes for Halloween and quoting it and stuff. And to me, the joke kind of wore out before the movie finished. Princess Bride, beautiful. Ed Wood, that's a good pick at number 36. We're scrolling down here. Oh, I can't wait to find out what they have in their top 10. Sullivan's Travels, a fantastic film from 1941 with a lot of amazing social commentary as well. If you've never had a chance to see that, you should check that out. Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. Okay, that's at number 30. I will say this. I think that film is brilliant. I think the satire there is so knowing. It's almost too good. Mike Myers came up with these characters. Obviously, it's a Bond spill, maybe even more Matt Helm, but British, all of those things. But the characters, the creations, everything I thought was beautifully done. See, then they got a Richard Pryor live in concert at number 28. I don't know how you can, well, you can't. We're talking apples and oranges. We're talking stand-up comedy specials and scripted dramedies and flat-out farce, broad slapstick comedies. But they got Richard Pryor live in concert at 28. Kind of curious now as what they're going to come up with. They've got MASH from 1970, the original film, higher than I would have it. It's good, but a lot of the humor there doesn't, I don't think, and as the cliche goes, holds up very well. Bridesmaids is way up there. Bridesmaid, Caddyshack, they got a 22. Yeah, Caddyshack, come on, man. Still hilarious. One of the most quoted films, Spinal Tap. They've got, all right, I'm scrolling as we speak, guys. Let's get to the top 10. We've got Groundhog Day at number 10. And again, absolutely hilarious film, but it's an existential drama. It's a philosophical treatise on life and second chances. It's one of the most spiritual films in its own way. It's been studied in different types of college classes and papers have been written about it. I think Groundhog Day is one of the best 100 movies of all time in, all films, all genres. So I can't argue with that. They've got Young Frankenstein at number 9. Fargo at number 8 is really interesting to me. Okay, so yes, I mean, we're talking, it's a black comedy for sure. And it's a satire from the moment it starts off by saying it's based on a true event, and certain names have been changed to protect people. It's not based on a true event at all. It's a brilliant film, and it's, we've had a great television series, named Fargo, and, completely different storylines every year. But Fargo, I mean, it's a great film. And there are some big laughs, and there's also like murder, and the murder isn't really played like you're in some sort of slapstick thing, right? And if you'll recall, not to give too much away, but after all, this was almost 30 years ago. Some of the people who get killed in Fargo are innocent. They are not, it's one thing like, oh, the bad guys shoot the bad guys, or, things like that. Even in dramas like Reservoir Dogs, it's like, well, there's off-screen killings of bank tellers and innocent people, and there's one where they steal the car, but it's mostly bad guys shooting bad guys, and same thing in Goodfellas and so many other movies like that. But Fargo, completely innocent people who are in the wrong place at the wrong time get murdered, and they're very violent. So it's an interesting. I can't argue with it, yeah, if you're going to call it a comedy, but geez. Monty Python and the Holy Grail, number 6. It's a great film. Waiting for Guffman. I love the Christopher Guest movies. I don't think I'd have Waiting for Guffman at number 5 of all time. I like Best in Show better, actually. The Great Dictator. Yeah, that's a classic film, 1940. If you haven't seen it, of course, this is Charlie Chaplin, and he's basically satirizing Hitler and Mussolini at a time where that was bold and rebellious and brilliant thing to do. Annie Hall at number 3. Annie Hall's a great film. It's probably the last pure comedy to win Best Picture. Shakespeare in Love, one could argue. But listen, I know some people don't want to talk about the films of Woody Allen, and that's fine. If you don't want to watch his movies, that's fine. I believe you can watch the films, and doesn't mean you're, saying that you believe he's not guilty of the things he's been accused of. But I recently was rewatching Annie Hall in Manhattan and Hannah and her sisters. And yeah, there are certain plot points where you're like, Jesus, wow. But they are absolutely, masterful works. And all of these films, while very funny, are filled with angst and betrayal and people, coming to realizations that aren't necessarily happy, and relationships that don't last. It's pretty dark too. Number 2, Some Like It Hot. Some Like It Hot. I get that. It's that's the Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon and Marilyn Monroe, and it's Billy Wilder, and he's one of the most influential filmmakers of all time. I wouldn't have it at number 2. I think some of the and again, listen, it's 60 years ago, right? Some of the humor now, it's like, it's really broad and kind of beating certain jokes into the ground. And then they got The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad at number 1. No, it's listen, it's really, really funny, but I mean, I'm just off the top of my head, and I didn't come up with my own list. I could do that another time, but I instantly think of National Lampoon's Animal House. I would put. Do you put Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in the list then, guys? Because it's the same thing. There's a ton of humor, but then there's the other stuff in there too. But I would not have The Naked Gun at number 1. But there you have it. That's the variety list. I wanted to mention one quick thing too before we got some reviews for you guys. Quentin Tarantino has trashed Paul Dano, the actor. So Quentin Tarantino, one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, was on Bret Easton Ellis' podcast. Bret Easton Ellis, the writer of Less Than Zero and American Psycho, the novels that were turned into memorable films. But he said that they were talking, a lot of listings going on, people making lists. They were talking, Quentin was, I guess, naming his top 10 movies of the 21st century. And he said, There Will Be Blood, the Paul Thomas Anderson masterpiece with Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano. He had it at number 5, and he said it would probably be number 1 or number 2 if it didn't have a big giant flaw. And that flaw is Paul Dano, the filmmaker, stated. He said Daniel's performance is nowhere near as good as Daniel Day-Lewis's, who won the Academy Award, and said, if it had been somebody else, he might have had the movie higher. And Tarantino said, he's weak sauce, man. He's a weak sister. and goes off on there. Okay. I will preface this by saying Paul Dano is not my favorite actor. I'm not saying he's not talented. He is, but he does often play that certain kind of mealy-mouthed, weak, kind of creepy guy, in a number of his roles. And I don't think he is the most versatile of actors. I certainly think that Quentin's off by saying that the guy's like the worst. He's like the worst actor in the Screen Actors Guild. And I love Quentin. If I was listing my favorite movies of all time, I'd probably have 5 of his in my top 100. But bad form, Quentin, bad form. And as many people have pointed out on the social media, Quentin Tarantino is a guy who puts himself, and he's been in some other people's movies, but he puts himself in his own movies, and he's terrible. He's gotten a little better, but if you go back and look at Reservoir Dogs and the famous scene in Pulp Fiction, where Mr. Wolf comes to his house because the guys have come with the body and he's going to make him the coffee and everything. Replay a little of that scene, and you've got Harvey Keitel, and you've got Samuel L. Jackson, and you got John Travolta, and then you got Quentin Tarantino, and you could tell who's the amateur in the bunch. So kind of bad form, Quentin. Leave Paul Dano alone. All right, let's take a break, talk about Portillo's, and then I got some reviews for you guys. All right, we're going to talk about Portillo's. You guys know the drill here. They're known for their famous Chicago hot dogs with all the famous correct Chicago ingredients, right down to that poppy seed bun. But there's so much more. They got great burgers. You can get Italian sausage, Italian beef, amazing French fries. Also some really good salads. Don't shortchange the salads at Portillo's. And then, of course, you top it off with the legendary, the one and only chocolate cake. I know people who order the entire cake for birthdays and other occasions, but you can also get a slice, which will probably last you 2 helpings because it's amazing. And always, of course, you keep the cake at room temperature. That's how they do it at Portillo's. That's how you want to consume it. Now, there are Portillo's in many locations across the country, but you can also order online and ship it via Portillos.com. You can find a location near you, order online. Portillo's, Portillos.com, Portillos.com. Okay, so this is the time of year where we get these December releases, and even though the whole movie release game has changed so much over the last 5 to 10 years, with release patterns being different and things going straight to streaming or only playing for a little while in theaters, there's still certain traditions where a lot of the awards contenders come out after Labor Day, and we get some big blockbusters. So this is the time of year, we've got The Wicked for Good, which is doing very well at the box office, and the latest installment of the Avatar franchise is coming to theaters soon. I've seen it. I'll talk to you guys about it, I think, on the next podcast. And then you have all these awards contenders and small films, and unfortunately, some of them kind of get lost in the mix, I feel. And I wanted to talk about a film called Eternity. And I'm not saying it's an Academy Award level film, but it's a really interesting film, and I did like it a lot, and it really gives you a lot to think about.
You've passed away, Larry.
Who are you?
I'm Anna. I'm your afterlife coordinator.
That's not a job.
And this is the junction, where you choose one place to spend eternity.
You want a little sniffle?
And who to spend it with.
Joan! Joan!
I was in bed and then I...
You look amazing. I have shocking news. You're dead.
dead.
Yeah, how'd you know?
It took him forever to figure that out.
Excuse me.
I've been waiting for this golden goose for 67 goddamn years. It's a lot to absorb, so I highly recommend just taking a deep breath in and out. Just breathe.
I never dreamt you this clearly.
You're exactly how I dreamt you.
Oh, no.
Who's this guy? First husband. He died in a war.
Joni, you all right?
Honey.
The story of Eternity is, and it kind of reminds me of a movie called Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks film with Meryl Streep from many, many years ago. So the plot summary is this. Okay, so Elizabeth Olsen plays a woman named Grace. Elizabeth Olsen plays her as a young woman. As the movie starts, it's played by it's an actress in her 80s. It's a character in her 80s. When she dies and goes into the afterlife, she reverts to herself. So most of the movie is set in the afterlife. Okay, so Elizabeth Olsen is playing Grace in the afterlife. Now, she's in this place. It's a transit hub known as the Junction, and it's a way station where the newly deceased have to choose what form of eternity they're going to take. They can be on a beach. They could be in a place where it's okay to smoke and drink and you won't get sick ever again. You could be in different eras, like the 1950s if you want to be. You could be at a certain point of your life. So her husband also dies just a little bit before her, and now he's in the afterlife. We get the younger version of the husband. So Miles Teller is playing, I know this is kind of complex, but they laid out the movie in a very, straightforward way where you just go with it or you don't. So we're in the eternity, right? We're in this junction where you're going to decide what you're going to do for eternity. So her husband, played by Miles Teller, Adam. So you've got Adam and Grace. Now they were married for like 50 years. Now they're in eternity as people in their 30s, as they look then, and now they can spend the rest of their lives together. But the twist is that Grace was previously married to Charlie, her first great love, but he was killed in the war. So he's been waiting in eternity for 50 years. So now she's got her first husband and her second husband, and she's got to decide what she's going to do. She's going to spend, she can't spend it with both. Are you going to spend the eternity of your existence with your first great love and all the passion and excitement, or the man who you became life partners with and you had children and grandchildren? But the romance, it ebbs and flows over 50 years. So it's really this kind of deep question, and it's handled, I think, beautifully. It's a little bit unsettling because you think about all the people, if you believe in this sort of eternity, like there are a lot of people who have been married more than once, or have had two great loves. What would you do? And maybe one of them doesn't want you. So it's called Eternity. If you get a chance, check it out. I also wanted to mention there's a documentary, and it's I think it's on HBO and HBO Max. You can find it. 40-minute documentary, and it's called The Shuffle, and it's about the Super Bowl Shuffle. And of course, as you guys know, I'm in Chicago, so I have a particular affinity for stuff like that. And it just goes back and tells the entire story of the Super Bowl Shuffle, which is pretty incredible because you see all these athletes and teams and everything. They always do these promotional videos and branding things. But in 1985, it was pretty unique, and they actually recorded the Super Bowl Shuffle while the Bears were in the middle of their season. And then they realized if we don't win the Super Bowl Shuffle, we're going to look like effing idiots.
Welcome to Super Sunday. Logic says the Bears will be doing the Super Bowl Shuffle in Chicago tonight.
What do you think of football players doing a rap song and a line dance?
I didn't come here looking for trouble. I just came to do the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Mike Singletary and Gary Fenstick and Willie Gault and Jim McMahon, who hasn't done a lot of press lately. And I'm glad to say, because there's been reports, he had been dealing with some issues, and he actually looks good and sounds great. And they talk about the memories they had of making the Super Bowl Shuffle in the video, which is the only, as far as I know, sports team to ever have a record that not only went gold, the Super Bowl Shuffle, but was nominated for a Grammy. I swear to God, the Super Bowl Shuffle was nominated for a Grammy for Best R&B Performance, and here's the competition that year. Prince and the Revolution, Run DMC, Ashford and Simpson, Sade, and Cameo, and the Bears. They were actually nominated for, now, spoiler alert, Prince won. So they didn't beat out Prince and the Revolution's version of Kiss. So anyway, if you want to check out the Shuffle, it's HBO Max streaming, a lot of entertainment. Gosh, we're just about out of time. I did want to mention one other movie that I reviewed a few weeks ago. You can get the print review at rogerebert.com. But I do want to mention Rental Family. It's another one of those movies that I don't want to see get lost in the shuffle of all the big holiday movies and the Avatars and the Wicked for Goods, if you will.
So, what do you think we do here? We sell emotion.
How?
We play roles in clients' lives. Parents, siblings, boyfriends, girlfriends, best friends, and help them connect to what's missing.
I'm just an actor. I don't know how to help people.
What I'm offering here is a chance to play roles with a real meaning.
What do you need me for?
We need a token white guy.
Well, this is amazing.
It's cool, but it's fake.
Sometimes it's okay to pretend.
This is Brendan Fraser. And believe it or not, there's actually businesses in Japan where you could rent family members. You could rent a brother-in-law if you need someone to come to a wedding. You could rent mourners to come to a funeral. You could rent someone to play your dad if you miss a dad figure. They actually rent out family members, and he gets rented out. He's an American actor living in Japan. He gets rented out to play the dad of a young 11-year-old girl because the dad's not in the picture. The mom needs his dad because they're trying to get the little girl into a prestigious school, and the culture there still is like if you have two parents, you got a better chance of getting in. And you can imagine what happens when you get rented out as a dad to an adorable girl. That lines are going to get crossed, and you're going to start feeling like you really are the dad, but you're not. You're a rental dad, and it's very sweet and very smart and knowing, and kind of reminded me a little bit of Lost in Translation with Bill Murray from a million years ago. But the difference here is that Bill Murray played an actor who was very successful and was there to do a multi-million-dollar commercial. Brendan Fraser plays a fringe actor who's there because he did a toothpaste commercial and he's got, he needs work. So that's why he goes to work for the rental family company. But I love Brendan Fraser. And he's perfect for this role because his whole face kind of looks like a human emoji. Like he's got that sad human emoji face, and he's brilliant in this. So check that out as well. That's going to do it for the Richard Roeper Show podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk again soon.